All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to welcome up our first guest for the show from Trident. And this is to help you all out with finding out about whether or not the investment you're about to make is totally secure or you're looking at some collection issues. This is a company that promised to help you in all of that. So please welcome to the show. Hi, welcome to the show. We were just telling the Tito'clockers over here about Trident, and I was reading up about Trident on the way here in the van. I thought that it was a collection service, but you do far more than that. Can we start off by telling people what exactly do you do in the way of checking and doing background checks when you're about to purchase, let's say, a property or a car?
First of all, thank you for having us here. Trident Credit Support and Collection Services actually is a bank service provider for the past 5 years. But now, we're launching a new platform to specifically cater to the public. Now, you mentioned checking properties prior to investing in them. We can do that by doing a title traceback if it's a real property, a house or a condo. You can request through us instead of going to the actual registry of deeds to check the title of the property you're about to purchase. Especially now, for second-hand pre-owned vehicles, we can also help you secure a vehicle history to see the ownership transfers of the vehicle you're trying to purchase, or to find out if there are any issues with the ownership or traffic violations before you buy the vehicle.
That's a great service to have. Now, how rampant is this? I mean, are there many cases where you buy an apartment, house, car, where it's encumbered or it has flags on it and then the owner is left medyo taya?
Well, it's pretty common now, especially for second-hand vehicles. Because remember, last year, the government launched this no-contact apprehension in several cities. What they do there is, although the traffic violation is actually committed by the driver, since there will be no contact, the violation will be attached to the vehicle. So when you try to renew or you try to transfer the vehicle, those violations will be tucked into the system of the Land Transportation Office. There's no way of knowing whether there's a violation unless you check it with their system.
Okay, so that's for a traffic violation. How about for property?
Well, for real property, it's common practice actually. It's part of your due diligence. You try to find out if someone offers you a property, you try to verify the title if it's authentic. So what you normally do, you go to the Registry of Deeds where the property is located. For example, in Makati, you try to check if the title presented to you by your seller is an exact match of the title that's in the office, the Registry of Deeds. When you do that, you can also find out if there are third-party claimants. You can even go further by going back the previous transfers to really check if there are any issues that are not disclosed.
What's the worst case scenario that you've heard of? I mean, like, just so in case people don't really understand how severe the problem is.
There are instances where third parties can actually try to register a claim without the registered owner knowing. For example, there's a case filed by someone against your seller and it affects the property. For example, there's a collection case, there's a fraud involved. That third party can actually ask the court to grant them a preliminary attachment. So if your buyer shows you a title that is clean, you will rely on that. However, the court or the sheriff can annotate or register something with the Registry of Deeds without the Registry of Deeds requiring the presentation of the owner's duplicate, which is the one your seller is showing you. So if you don't check with the Registry of Deeds and just purchase the property outright, you will be left with a title that may be taken by the court later on. So that's a big exposure.
Wow, that's really scary. That's life-changing scary. I mean, that could really ruin a person if you're dealing with a property. What's your personal experience? What have you encountered in your personal experience, the worst case with a client or situation that you've had to fix?
There was a court case involving the owner. They're like it's a labor case normally. If a company closes down, then the employees would want to file a case against the employer. Normally, they would attach the properties of the shareholders or the president of that company. They would go after those properties, but fortunately, we avoided several instances of that.
So obviously, yeah, I now that I think about my question, you're really there for the prevention rather than the cure. You're not the people to deal with if you already bought a property that happens to have had either encumbered or flags or etc. So just to be clear, if you're doing due diligence on anything like purchasing a property, a car, what about businesses? Do you go into that as well?
Right now, we don't handle business registration because our core business right now is dealing with Registry of Deeds transactions and Land Transportation Office. However, we did a number of business registration in the past, but we really specialize in volume transactions with these offices. Just to give you an example, when you fully pay a property that you finance in a bank, normally the bank does not offer cancellation service of the mortgage, whether it's real property or auto loans. You're left on your own to facilitate the removal of those mortgages. We offer that to the public as a way for them to avoid personally going to these offices.
What type of guarantees does your company give? If somebody goes through the process, do you give them like a certificate saying that this is clear and then that's enough to hold up in a court of law?
Well, actually, what we will secure from these offices are certified true copies of the documents that is recorded in their offices. Those are actually official documents.
All right. Well, that's already a huge service in itself, because I know a lot of people, for peace of mind, would want to make sure that everything they were doing, if they were investing, that all their due diligence was covered. What about for collection services? Are you also expanding with that consumer market?
Well, right now, we only offer collection services to our corporate clients. We're just focusing on the registration work right now for the public.
Can you just like walk us through the process so that people can have an idea in their head if they're looking to either engage you for one of your services for, let's say, a car? What's the first, second, and third step they need to go through?
What they can do is they can call us up, tell us the nature of the transaction. For example, they want to have their mortgage canceled for a car. Our agents will walk them through the process and tell them the documents required. Normally, what the government office require are copies of the cancellation provided by the bank. It's a certification showing that the loan is fully paid, copies of the promissory notes, and the original certificate of registration for the vehicles. And also, we will ask them to sign an authorization letter so we can transact for them. And then our field agents will pick up these documents after we review them, so that we can ensure that all documents required are correct. Then once the documents are picked up, we can transact it in these offices.
Okay, so those web platforms that you were talking about, where can they find you? And Lanny Mercado is asking, how much is your service fee?
The service fee, well, it varies. The underlying principle there is the time that you will save, as well as of course, you will avoid having to leave work. Basically, we try to make our rates very reasonable. We're used to hear about pabalik-balik or nagpapasa-pasahan. This is actually brought about by lack of information or lacking documents. What we can offer the public is we can pre-check all your documents, make sure that all the requirements are relayed to you, so that once we process the transaction, it will be a smooth transaction and we can release the documents as soon as possible. And that's also the aim of these government agencies. Especially now, there's this new law, Ease of Doing Business Act. It's very difficult for the public to go straight to these offices without having all the proper documents. So we're extending our services to the public to avoid the situation that they have to return several times.
Well, it sounds like it's very helpful. I mean, indeed, will save you a lot of time and a lot of headache later on, especially if you find out that, the property or the car that you have bought has some problems. Better to find out now. As they say, an ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure. We appreciate you coming on the show. We'll leave them with your contact details so that they know how to get a hold of you. So there you go. You know what? Sometimes, like we always do on Tito'clock, the topics that we cover, we try to keep them varied, and we just, most important, try to keep them helpful. This is something that has been bugging a few people out there. And if you get caught with it, it could be a massive problem. So it's a little service now that's being extended. If you find yourself making some kind of a substantial investment, you may want to just hook up with Trident and just see what they've got to offer over there.